I'd like to call to order the February 10th meeting of the Shelby Township Planning Commission. Madam Secretary, would you read the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Dallo.
Here.
Ms. DeSico. Here. Mr. Bernardi.
Here.
Ms. Casali. Mr. Waxmansky.
Here.
Mr. Rapone.
Here.
Mr. Vire.
Here.
Chairman Moffitt, we have a
Here.
quorum.
Thank you. Okay, next item is approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is approval of the minutes from the January 13th, 2014 regular meeting.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Dallu, support by DeSico. Any questions, comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, correspondence from the City of Rochester regarding their master plan. Mr. Wynn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We were given an opportunity to comment on the City of Rochester's draft master plan. It's actually a requirement of state law that they provide that opportunity for adjoining communities and kind of encourage cooperation along common boundary lines. And that particular boundary between Shelby and Rochester is on DeQuinder between 23 and 26 Mile Road. If you've driven up along that area, it's largely developed. In reviewing their plan, I noticed one discrepancy at the northwest corner of DeQuinder and Parkdale. They're showing it as vacant on their existing land use map. It's actually developed with a multiple family complex. And they're also showing it as a different development pattern, not reflecting what's there. So it's just probably an oversight, and that's the only comment. I just suggest we bring it to their attention. Thank them for the opportunity to comment on the plan and bring that, let them know there was that minor discrepancy.
Okay. Is there any questions for the planner? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Casali.
I move to support the adoption of the City of Rochester Master Plan, suggesting a change in the future land use classification at the northwest corner of DeQuinder Road and Parkdale Road to reflect the current development pattern.
Support.
Okay, moved by Casali, support by Pone. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none. Commissioner Casali?
Yes.
Commissioner Pone?
Yes.
Commissioner DeSico?
Yes.
Commissioner Dallu?
Yes.
Commissioner Bernardi?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Waxmansky?
Yes.
Commissioner Vire?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, under site plans, the first one this evening is number 14-02, Metro Design and Build, regarding a Culver's restaurant they're proposing at the northwest corner of 23 Mile and Hayes, an outlet for the Kroger's. The petitioner wants to come up and your name and address for the record, please, and if you could sign in.
Good evening. Ron Nelson with Metro Design and Build, 20031 Carlisle Street, Dearborn, Michigan. Also have with me this evening Mr. Derek Sessi, who is the Culver's franchisee.
Okay. I'm going to briefly give us a description of what you're proposing this evening.
Just a real quick orientation.
Tell you what. All right. Okay.
Quick orientation. 23 Mile Road is here, which will be our frontage. Hayes is down here. There's a developable outlet parcel also on the corner here that's outside of our boundaries. Quick orientation. This is the drive-in. The new Kroger development is in the back here. One of their main entrances is here. We'll have an entrance, an exit here, and an exit only here. This is a cross-access to another outlet parcel that's to the west of us. In general, the building, we've got about a 3,900 square foot building with a drive-through. We've got 9 stacking spaces, and a little bit unique to the Culver's as opposed to other restaurants is their food and products are all made to order. So when you order, if your order's not ready by the time you get to this window and pay, they will ask you to pull up, give you a number on your car, and they'll run the food out to you. So it's part of their service. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Culver's. I don't know if there's any out on this side of town. This may be the first one in this area.
Madison Heights.
Yeah, closest one. Yeah. Trash corral will be in the back of the building here. We are proposing 3 patio tables out here with umbrellas, just on a small little patio area in the nose out here. There are a total of 59 parking spaces provided. Also, we'll seat, we've got, shown on the plan right now is 87 seats. A small monument sign out here. and the building frontage sign here, and also one on the back that will face the Kroger development. And other than that, we'd be happy to entertain any questions or comments.
Okay. Mr. Nguyen? Your
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Comments from the engineering?
This was a very complete, very professional submission. Only a few comments remaining from the preliminary review. They did provide the declaration of reciprocal easements and restrictions, and we'd obviously ask Mr. Kirk to review those to make sure they provided that access opportunity for the adjoining parcels. The only site plan discrepancy we noted is that the loading area is in the back aisle, driveway aisle. So depending on how loading occurs and how frequently it occurs, there is the potential the loading could block the access or the drive-through lane.
The hours, I'm sorry if I can.
I think I'd like to hear a response to that.
The hours of operation, we open at 10 o'clock, correct, Eric? So all the deliveries are made in the morning, early morning before operating hours. So it should not be a conflict with any customer traffic through there.
It satisfies my concern, Mr. Chairman. The other comment, there's on the lighting plan, they show a typical wall pack light for security. We only ask them to have a different fixture so that the light points down, not outside. So that's just a minor detail. Standard comment from DPW about utilities and engineers' comments have all been addressed. So it's a very good plan.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr.
Chairman.
Taylor?
Mr. Nguyen, in reference to, there's, I think, 5 outlots in there. Is there any restriction to the drive-throughs, or they could all have drive-throughs?
They could potentially all have drive-throughs, yes.
And the signage, they could all have individual signage for each of these lots in the future?
Yes, they would be able to have their own individual monument signs. And the ability for the sites to accommodate the drive-through is really a matter of can they fit it on the site and make it work. And if they can, that's fine. So,
thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Any other questions?
Chairman, so is this the same size, larger, smaller as your store in Madison Heights?
I believe it's the same model. I'm not real familiar with that store, but I believe that this is the same model as that store.
Same height?
Quick elevation. This is kind of the new design. I don't know if you've seen some of the culverts around town, the white with the blue roof. So this is the new one they went to with a lot of ledge stone, and they've got siding on in between the ledge stone piers. So yeah.
How late will you be open till? 10:30. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, to the applicant, please, the hour of operation, what kind of food do you serve? I think I'm not familiar.
Here's your opportunity to advertise.
They have some samples in the car.
Primarily cheeseburgers and fresh custard. There is other items, but our core items would be cheeseburgers and fresh custard, which is a premium ice cream, more or less.
Hour operation?
10 to 10:30, seven days a week.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the site plan 14-02, proposing the development of a new Culver's restaurant on parcel number 23-07-13-400-059, subject to the submission of a revised plan addressing all of the department comments.
Support.
Okay. Moved by DeSico, support by Dalu. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, I will call the vote. Commissioner DeSico.
Yes.
Commissioner Dalu.
Yes.
Commissioner Casale.
Yes.
Commissioner Bernardi.
Yes.
Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
Commissioner Rapone.
Yes.
Commissioner Waxmansky.
Yes.
Commissioner Vire.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Good luck, gentlemen.
Chairman, could you leave your sets of plans out tonight? Because I can pick those up, because they have to revise. Usually we revise them and stamp and sign them, but there's so few corrections. I may be able to take these and save them some. There might be some modest things to do, but they don't have to make any more corrections. Maybe. Thank you very much. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Okay, next item is site plan number 14-04, Westwood Shelby Associates, LLC, Black Hills Estates. This is a petitioner and/or his representative here. hang on. This is actually a subdivision public hearing. So if you could hold on for a quick second. I would ask the secretary to read the notices published.
Yes, Charter Township of Shelby, notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that the Planning Commission for the Charter Township of Shelby, Macomb County, Michigan, has received a request for approval of a single-family condominium project. Applicant, Greg Acabelli, Westwood Shelby Associates, LLC, 51435 Industrial Drive, Macomb, Michigan, 48042. Proposed use, Black Hills Estates Condominium, 72 single-family units. Location, south side of 25 Mile Road between Van Dyke and M53 Freeway. Sidwell number is 23-07-10-126-003 and part of 23-07-10-200-004. Legal description is as follows. The Planning Commission will meet on Monday, February 10th, 2014 at 7 p.m. in the Shelby Municipal Building, 52700 Van Dyke, Shelby Township, Michigan, 586-726-7243, for the purpose of holding a public hearing on the tentative preliminary plat application. The application for tentative preliminary plat may be examined at the Planning and Zoning Department in the municipal building Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Written comments may be submitted to the Planning Commission at the above address prior to the hearing. Oral comments will be heard during the public hearing. This notice is provided pursuant to the requirements of Michigan Public Act 110 of 2006 as amended. Shelby Township Planning Commission, Jerome MOFFITT, Chair, Raquel Moore, Secretary. Publication date was January 22nd, 2014, in the Shelby Utica News.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kirk, did the publication meet all legal requirements?
Yes, it did.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Moore, did we receive any correspondence relating to this request?
No, we did not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. The format for the public hearing will be as follows. The petitioner or the representative will give a presentation stating the reasons for the request. Commissioners may then ask questions of the petitioner. The floor will be open to the public, and then the petitioner can make concluding remarks. At this time, is the petitioner here? And if you could give your name and address for the record, please.
Yes. My name is Gordon Wilson with Anderson, Eckstein, and Westrick, here on behalf of the Black Hills Estates condominiums. I also have Greg Acabelli, the owner of the development, here with me. As stated, this is a 72-lot site condominium development on the southwest corner of 25 Mile Road and M53. We have received all the comments from the planner, the engineer, and the road commission, have addressed all those and returned those back to the planner and to them for their review. There are two outstanding issues that we were not able to address as of yet, but we will address those by the end of the week they'll be addressed. Those issues were the street names, which the fire marshal was out of town, so we were not able to communicate with him and finalize those. The other outstanding issue is the traffic study, which we did one during the rezoning phase of the project, and it didn't show any problems, and we anticipate that there will not be any problems with this one when we get it done too. We'll have that to the planner by the end of the week. The traffic study will be done by Mike Vigneron from my office, who is a nationally certified professional traffic and operation engineer, and it'll be to the standards of the community, and we will comply with whatever the results of that are. And with that, I'd open it up to questions.
Okay. Because there were so many changes from the documents that were submitted to us earlier, I'm going to ask Mr. Wendigo next.
Sure. And let me just explain the process. It would be almost like a subdivision, but they're doing this, the way they transfer ownership is different, but for all practical purposes, this is a traditional single-family detached development on separate lots, only they're condominium lots, and the differences will become obvious in a minute. The review process would be the same as if we're handling a subdivision. There's a preliminary review, which they're at tonight, and we go through it to make sure that the design is satisfactory, meets all the requirements for a subdivision, and meets the requirements of the single-family zoning district, which is R1C. And once that is resolved, and then we move them and we confer preliminary approval, then they would go and obtain all their engineering approvals, and from not only our engineer but from the state and from the county. And they would then come back with those engineering approvals in hand and request final approval, and then they're ready to start construction. So this is really a design stage of the process. Mr. Wilson's correct. There were a number of what I would call housekeeping items. There were nothing substantial. This is a very well-done plan. And for my February 10th review, they revised it, and so I'm going to go through and highlight what's left over. The first comment deals with the lot area. In R1C, they're required to have 80-foot wide lots, 12,000 square feet of land area. You notice that some of these lots are smaller, some are bigger. The zoning ordinance actually provides a 10% reduction, so they've met the requirements for that. Just so you know, that's really not a comment, just an explanation. Tree removal permit would be required for this. They're not allowed to remove trees until after engineering is approved. Mr. Wilson's correct. The street name they'll have to be resolved when the fire marshal comes back. The comment number 10 and number 12, one dealing with the sidewalk and one dealing with performance bonds that the building director commented on, those will be addressed at final review. Those will be carryover comments. And then the last item from the engineer's review was the traffic assessment, which will have to be done. I would have no hesitation on modifying my recommendation to recommend approval at this stage of the process. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
As far as you understand, DPW has approved the water, what they're proposing for water, sanitary, storm sewer.
Yeah, in general, they have to do the engineering plans later, and then they'd come back for final approval. But for this stage of the process, they're designing it correctly.
Okay. Okay. To the board, any questions for the petitioner?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Wexmonsky.
how many bedrooms do you plan per unit?
Bedrooms, 3 to 4 bedrooms.
You'll have 3 to 4 bedrooms per unit? Okay. And what's the lot coverage, generally?
Well, 12,000 feet. When you say lot coverage, the size,
percentage of lot coverage.
the homes will range anywhere from 2,500 to probably 3,200 square feet.
So is that
lot coverage probably be around 30%, less than 30%.
30%?
30%.
So with 3 to 4 bedrooms, we're looking at 2 to 3 licensed drivers per household, possibly 4. Is that correct? How many parking places are we providing for each lot owner?
Our plan is for every house to have a 3-car garage. We plan on doing 3-car front entrance garages on every lot.
As well as the driveways with the front yard setback.
Okay. Will there be any on-street parking?
The plan would not to be any on-street parking, but there always will be on-street parking.
Greg, could you speak into the microphone, please?
There'll be public roads, 60-foot right-of-way, so there will be some on-street parking.
You think there'll be sufficient parking for visitors? I don't see any parking areas, visitor parking areas designated or anything.
This is
any place where they can go.
If I may, this is a residential subdivision, a single-family residential subdivision that meets your requirements for the R1C. As Greg had indicated, there'll be typically 3-car garages, plus whatever parking would normally be allowed in the driveways. Obviously, when visitors show up, you'll have 28-foot wide roads, which is the standard Macomb County road width, and they'll probably be designated as no parking on the hydrant sides and stuff. But with respect to that, it'll be no different than any other subdivision within the community.
So you don't anticipate any parking problems then?
No, we anticipate no parking problems whatsoever.
Do you have a question, Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Moore.
Yes, hi. As far as, will there be master deed and bylaws for the?
Yes, those will be submitted as part of the next step for the.
So you'll have an association then?
Yeah.
And then in regards to Deadwood, the street, will that tie in then with the, I mean, right now you just have one ingress egress. Will Deadwood then tie into another development?
Yes,
point?
I believe there's another project going to be following us probably in the next couple of months. It should be probably coming before you in the next couple of months. A different developer.
There's actually 2 potential opportunities for connections to vacant property: to the east, which is zoned single family, and to the south, which is zoned single family. You may recall when Mr. Ecabelli was here for his rezoning, the gentleman who had the property to the south was here as well. There are 2 stub streets, existing stub streets in the subdivision to the south that were originally intended to go through, but the wetlands, maybe, Gordy, if you could maybe point out where those are, there's those streets to that existing subdivision cannot go through now. Yeah.
Here, Gordy, could take this.
So where there is vacant acreage, the accommodation for continuing the road system has been provided. Where it already exists, it was considered, but the wetlands prevented it from occurring. So.
And then just one other question, if you want. In regards to the floodplain, I noticed you have AE floodplain running through. Will that impact at all? It looks like it doesn't even impact the homes at all? It's
No,
just
it
on
does
the
not.
property itself?
You're correct on that. It
Okay.
does not impact it whatsoever.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Hearing none. This is the only public hearing the Planning Commission will hold on this subdivision approval request. All remarks will be entered into the record for Township Board evaluation. We are a recommending body, and the Township Board will evaluate our recommendation, which is a legislative body. The Township Board will make the final decision on the subdivision application. At this time, thank you. The floor is open to the public. If you have any questions or comments, you're free to do that at this time. I would just ask that you give your name and your address and sign in. No, you need to kind of come up and. Yeah.
Trying to understand the map, really like where this is in relation to my home, because I think I happen to live right next to this piece of property. And I think you already answered my question, but I'd really like to know if the cul-de-sacs at the end of Folklore and Sunderland, are they going to be preserved by this plan?
Yeah, they're not going to connect to Sutherland.
Okay, is that a picture of us up there? Because I just don't understand the picture.
It would be.
I live on Folklore, the end of Folklore.
Okay.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's Sunderland down there then? Okay. And so you guys are coming up, but you're not gonna break through, and so it won't be a big traffic issue is what I'm wondering. And, okay, so there'll be two separate subdivisions in that.
Chairman, the open space that you have at the end of the cul-de-sac will remain that way.
Oh, okay, nice, yeah. Okay.
This is rare when this happens.
It just is so very nice there for the kids who play at the end. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Did you sign in, ma'am? Would anyone else wish to comment? Questions? No, you don't get off that easy.
Have a copy of this
Okay,
proposed map?
first, can I get your name and your address?
Bastis.
Okay.
We were just wondering if we can have a copy of the map, or is it too early to kind of have?
They can have a copy.
Yeah, Mr. Wynn, if you want to come see Mr. Wynn.
Our property is going to be affected too as well, and we're off the Haywald subdivision. And I'm trying from the back to understand how this is oriented.
Okay, tell you what, Gordy, come here.
Please.
Take the mic this time. Go show.
Can you hear me?
If you want to go with him, he'll point and see if you can figure out where you're.
Can we ask what street you're on? That might help.
Yeah.
Okay. This is Folklore, as we said earlier, over here. This is Sunderland over here. Area that is not part of the development that was set aside, as Mr. Wynn had said.
I have a better map here.
25-mile road up here, M53 along here.
Yep.
Yes, to the end of the cul-de-sacs there. Here.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, this is all part of the proposed development shown here in green and gray. Here's the other streets in here. If you look at the gray area here is where the development is occurring.
Mr. Chairman, I think their property is a half a mile away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we try to accommodate most people. Half a mile away is a little beyond the range.
We weren't sure how close it was coming.
No, that's why we're here. Okay. Great, thank you. Did you sign in? Okay. Would anyone else like to comment? Going once, going twice. Okay, back to the board. Mr. Nguyen, any final comments?
No, not tonight, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Cabelli, Mr. Wilson, any comments? Oh, I do have one comment. Mr. Nguyen's last name is W-Y-N-N, so let the guys at AEW know that, your colleagues know that. Curry favor with the planner, spell his name right.
I'm not offended.
Any final comments?
We have no other comments.
Okay. At this point, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Support.
Moved and supported. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. At this point, advise the commission that we may recommend approval, disapprove the request, or to table it to reevaluate the information further. At this time, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
More?
I move to approve Site Plan 14-04 for Black Hills Estates preliminary site condominiums, subject to resolution of all remaining comments when the final plans are submitted for review and approved by the Planning Commission.
Support. Okay, moved by Moore, support by Vire. Any comments on the motion? Hearing none. Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Vire?
Yes.
Commissioner Waxmansky?
Yes.
Commissioner Pone?
Yes.
Commissioner Bernardi?
Yes.
Commissioner Casale?
Yes.
Commissioner Dalu?
Yes.
Commissioner DeSico?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Good luck, gentlemen.
Very much.
Okay, next, under new business, we have another public hearing. This one regarding several text amendments that are being proposed to our township ordinances. Madam Secretary, would you read the public hearing?
Charter Township of Shelby, notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that the Planning Commission for the Charter Township of Shelby, Macomb County, Michigan, is considering multiple amendments to the following sections of the zoning ordinance. In this, there are 28 amendments. There's section number, subject, and explanation. The Planning Commission will meet on Monday, February 10th, 2014 at 7 p.m. in the Shelby Municipal Building, 52700 Van Dyke, Shelby Township, Michigan, 586-726-7243, for the purpose of holding a public hearing on these proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance text and zoning map may be examined at the Planning and Zoning Department in the municipal building Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Written comments may be submitted to the Planning Commission at the above address prior to the hearing. Oral comments will be heard during the public hearing. This notice is provided pursuant to the requirements of Michigan Public Act 110 of 2006 as amended. Shelby Township Planning Commission, Jerome MOFFITT, Chair, Raquel Moore, Secretary. Publication date was Shelby Utica News, January 22nd, 2014.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kirk, did the publication meet all legal requirements?
Yes, it did.
Okay, thank you. Did we receive any correspondence, Ms. Moore?
No, we did not.
Actually, I think we did.
Oh, we did.
Oh, we did.
Oh, I apologize. We did. From Mr. Bill Ashley. Basically, he is concerned about storing his firewood on racks outside of his home. The current or the new proposed ordinance would face him with decision on where to store exactly on his lot. So what would be the effective date for the proposed code enforcement is basically what he's asking, and about different parcels of land in which are zoned residential, and his zoning ordinance applying with the firewood.
Okay, thank you. The format for the public hearing will be as follows. The petitioner or the representative will give a presentation stating the reasons for the rezoning or amendments. The commissioners may then ask questions of the petitioner. The floor will be open to the public, and then the petitioner will make concluding remarks. Seeing as the petitioner is the township and Mr. Nguyen is the representative of the township in this matter. I'll turn it to him to
Thank you.
offer presentation.
These probably look a little familiar to the commission because we did introduce these amendments to you in January, just to review. There are 28 proposed amendments to the ordinance. Then there's a summary table that's been provided that explains what the amendments are about. The format and the presentation are similar to what we used in the past. You'll have the existing text, proposed modifications, and an explanation as to why we're proposing the change. The overall reasons why we do this is to improve the clarity of the ordinance, resolve ambiguities where they exist, introduce new development standards that may be appropriate, and in particular, many of these amendments are dealing with coordination between our department and code enforcement, where they've identified some areas that need some improvement to improve their ability to enforce the ordinance. I didn't intend to go through all these tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions. We did have comments that were raised in addition to Mr. Ashley's comments. We sent these to the Board of Appeals, and there are some other sections that will that they've raised some questions on that we want to investigate further. So depending on the comments of the public hearing, we may want to just postpone sending these to the board and get them resolved. I know I had a chance to chat with Mr. MOFFITT today and one ZBA member, so I'd rather get this in a final effort, and I do appreciate the comments that we got from Mr. Ashley as well. They're very well done and very good.
Okay. I'll turn it to the board. Do you have any questions or comments on these rezoning requests for Mr. Nguyen? Hearing none at this point. This is the only public hearing the Planning Commission will hold on the rezoning request. Your remarks will be entered into the record for Township Board evaluation. The Planning Commission is a recommending body. The Township Board will take into consideration these comments when making the final decision on these amendments. At this point, it's appropriate for anyone in the audience that wishes to come up and address any of these proposed changes. If I could just get your name and your address, please, if you could sign in.
Good evening. Bill Ashley, 53210 Robin Hood Drive in Shelby Township. I just wanted to clarify one thing. The email that you were reading, Ms. Moore, was an earlier request that I had sent to Mr. Nguyen. The comments that were sent with your agenda are longer. They included a photograph of a wood pile. So it's a different document than you were referring to.
Mr. Ashley, they got both. They got both of them.
All right.
We did receive.
So I'm speaking in opposition to only a small portion of the wording in the new firewood ordinance. That would be the second item on the first page of your list of ordinance changes. In other words, the township never has had a firewood ordinance in the past, so this is a new subject. The portion that I'm objecting to is the 5 face cord limit for storage on residential lots. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of all the residents of Shelby Township who are currently heating their home with firewood or would like to start doing so in the future. I'm retired. I'm living on a fixed income, a situation that each of you will find yourself in one day. To save money on my utility bills, I heat my entire house with firewood every winter. I've been doing so for 5 years. I invested over $3,800 to install a large capacity, high efficiency wood burning fireplace insert, and that's how I'm heating my home. If the proposed new ordinance is approved as written, I will no longer be able to heat my house with firewood for the entire winter. I burn, on average, 1 face cord of firewood every 2 weeks. For those of you who are not familiar with the face cord, it's a standard unit of measure for firewood. It's 8 feet long, 4 feet high, of neatly stacked firewood, which has been cut to firewood length, 16 to 18 inches of standard firewood length. So that's 1 face cord. I burn one of those every 2 weeks during the winter. If I were limited to storing only 5 face cords of seasoned firewood on my property, I would completely run out of firewood sometime during the month of December every winter. My firewood is neatly stacked on racks, which keeps the wood up off the ground. And there's a picture in your document there that was taken last week. It shows 14 face cords of firewood. That's in my backyard, behind my house, at the rear of my property line. I think it's very important that you understand that I am not in the firewood business. I do not sell firewood. All of the firewood that you see in that photograph is for my personal consumption to heat my house. The building department requested this new ordinance. So I went and had a meeting with Mr. Tim Wood, the director of the building department. He told me that the proposed ordinance was not intended to cause a hardship for me or for anyone else who was heating their house with firewood. Tim said that the ordinance was targeting folks who had large piles of unstacked, unsplit firewood on their property, and also people who the township suspects is in the firewood retail business but denies it when they're asked about it. So that was the genesis for this new ordinance. So it sounds to me like there's some unintended consequences of this new ordinance. That's why I'm here. Mr. Wood assured me that some type of waiver or exception would be made for my situation. He said to me, "We'll work something out." I would feel much more comfortable if the wording of the proposed ordinance was changed now to work something out. And there are a number of ways that you could modify the wording that would take care of my problem. In terms of alternatives, there really are none that are viable. I spent a long time with Mr. Wood asking things like, if I were to purchase a parcel of vacant land near where I live, could I store my excess firewood there? And he said, no. He said, that's not the intended purpose of residential vacant land. So I can't move my firewood to some other location. I don't own any other property in Shelby Township other than my home. So it's either stored at my home or I can't have it, essentially. If this new ordinance is approved as written, the only remaining alternative for me would be to purchase seasoned firewood from a vendor after I've already burned my allowed 5 face cords. That would be sometime in December. I would run out and I would get on the phone and order some firewood from a vendor. The current retail price of seasoned hardwood varies from $55 to $75 a face cord. Well, if I was put in a position where I had to purchase the firewood to burn in my home, it defeats the whole purpose of trying to save on my utility bills. So I don't pay for the firewood currently. The trees and limbs are donated to me, and I do all the labor myself. So I have nothing invested in this firewood other than gasoline for my chainsaw. So one of the options that could be used to address the problem is the city of Minneapolis had a similar situation, and they found a solution. They wrote into the ordinance that residents may apply to the township, or the city in their case, for a permit to store firewood in excess of the limits placed in their ordinance. So they made provisions for a workaround to solve my problem. And of the possible alternatives that I've thought of over the last week, that's the one I think makes the most sense. So I'm asking that you would consider that, and that you would modify the wording of this ordinance before it gets passed on to the Board of Trustees. Just as a point of reference, I did a search of ordinances or our surrounding communities, and I'll quickly tell you what I found. City of Dearborn, no limit. Stacks are limited to 25% of the width of the lot on the rear lot. Sterling Heights, no limit if neatly stacked. Warren, 5 face cord limit. If you look at the wording that's on your page there, the proposed wording, it's almost identical to the City of Warren. So my guess is the author of this ordinance used the City of Warren as a basis. And I would submit to you that the type of properties we have here in Shelby are quite a bit different than the City of Warren, third largest city in the state. The lots are a lot smaller. It's much more congested. I think we probably should not be copying after the City of Warren firewood ordinance. Clinton Township ordinance, face cord limit. It varies between 3 and 5 face cords based on residential zoning, R1, R2, R3. Macomb Township, no limit if cut and stacked. Rochester Hills, no limit if neatly stacked. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Someone else wish to? Okay.
My name is Mike Ross. I live at 53290 Marion Drive, and I'm here to talk in support of Bill Ashley. I'm also speaking for some of the retirees and pensioners. A rhetorical question to start off with. What is the biggest enemy of a retiree? The answer is inflation. And why do I bring that up? You are considering changing some of the ordinances which will affect some of our retirees. Bill heats his entire home with free wood. He gets the wood from neighbors like me. We lose branches or trees after every major storm. And when a tree goes down, Bill shows up with his chainsaw, and the neighbors chip in with township environmental bins for the leaves, twigs, and branches. Bill stays until every leaf is picked up. And then he carts the logs off to his home, and then he chops them up and stacks them neatly and seasons it for a year. If you don't know anything about firewood, freshly chopped firewood contains 50% moisture. If you burn it, you get a lot of smoke and creosote and very little heat. Hardwoods require 1 to 2 years to be fully seasoned. If you research on the internet, a 2,500 square foot home in northern Ohio or southern Michigan requires 4 to 5 full cords in a normal season. Again, as Bill mentioned, a full cord is equal to 3 face cords. And you need at least 2 seasons worth of wood, so you can have enough for the next season. Bill mentioned he used 12 face cords last season. The reason I'm here is I think it's very, very wrong to penalize homeowners like and retirees like Bill. I hope that you won't cause him inflation or some of the other retirees in the township, and I hope that your ordinance will not have the unintended consequences of penalizing the other township residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sign in.
Did you sign in? I need you to sign in.
Oh, sure.
I'm Elizabeth Beakey.
I'm Bill Beakey.
I live at 54273 Folklore, Shelby Township, Michigan. And I've also like to speak in support of myself and these other two gentlemen. I also heat my entire home with wood that I gather during the summer and season over the winters here. I, at this time, have, well, I don't anymore, but I had about 8 cords stacked neatly at my house. I never had a complaint from any of my neighbors or anything like that. And at this time, in beginning of February, we're looking for more wood already because we burned everything. Like the other gentleman, it would be a very big hardship to not be able to stack that wood. And it seems to me that it probably isn't the intent to cause a hardship on anyone here. And it does seem like maybe it's a little bit too restrictive, and maybe the best way to resolve it is to just target those persons. If your purpose is for neatness, then maybe to look at and say if neatly stacked, or target more the problem that you're trying to solve, whereas it might cause a hardship for some of us who are working the other way. And it seems like we never had a problem.
Okay.
Well, just that these statistics these guys gave us are very true from my own experience. We've been burning for way more than 5 years, and we do have a high efficiency insert. And it's everything he says. You know, it takes time to season it, and it takes 10, 15 cords a season. More this season, of course.
And a lot of work to get it there.
Yeah. It's our sweat equity going into it. Yeah. We're not retired, but we can't afford the natural gas bills.
And this is why we go through this process. Because I think the intent of it makes sense, because there are folks that it's created a nuisance for the neighborhood, and that's what this is intended to address, not for the people that stack it and keep it neat. And I have folks that live across the street from me that I know very well that do the same thing and in a responsible way, other than occasional big wood pile in the end of their garage for a day or two while they chop it down. So I think the notion of a permit is a real good one, and I know. And Mr. Wynn began his comments by saying that he was going to recommend that we postpone to work out some of these issues and some issues some other folks, myself included, had raised when I went through this.
Yeah, we cast a fairly wide net here with this particular provision, and it was never the intention to catch people that are doing it in a responsible way. And Mr. Ashley offered a couple suggestions already, that we increase the limit, or we just said stack neatly. We might be able to do this real simply, but I'd rather work out the language at another time and not do it tonight and just postpone this till we get this fixed. But anybody that's here that put their name down, I'd be happy to share those comments with any corrections, so you can comment about them on them again. So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Mr. Chairman, this is we've been doing these amendments every year for about 15 years at least, and this is the first time we got comments on some of this. I'm delighted we got comments.
Yeah, he was quite excited.
Very thoughtful comments. So we appreciate that, and I'm committed to making, Mr. Wood said we'll work it out. I'd rather work it out ahead of time versus afterwards, and put anybody in a precarious situation, because then we have more problems. I don't want to have that.
Sir, do you have any comments? No? Okay, and with that, any concluding remarks, or were those them?
No. I think I would recommend postponement. We'll get these things corrected, bring them back, and share those with the residents as well.
Okay. Motion to close public hearing?
So move.
Support. Moved and supported. Okay. A decision must be based on the following, this evening's decision. The practicality of this rezoning request and the effects on the surrounding area, effect on the community, the township owner's rights to operate within the township. Are these appropriate, Mr. Wynn?
They're more for map amendments. They're probably not appropriate for text amendments.
I'm trying to amend them on the fly here.
I think you could have dispensed with that.
Yeah, well, we dispense with them. At this point, we can approve the proposed amendments. We can table them to evaluate the information further, or we can disapprove them. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, go ahead.
I move to table the proposed amendments for further development.
Okay. And support?
Support.
Okay, it's been moved by Wismonski, support by Moore. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none. Commissioner Wismonski.
Yes.
Commissioner Byer.
Yes.
Commissioner Pone.
Yes.
Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
Commissioner Bernardi.
Yes.
Commissioner Casale.
Yes.
Commissioner Dalu.
Yeah.
Commissioner DeSico.
Yes.
And the chairman votes yes. Okay, thank you. Anything under planning director's report, Mr. Wynn? Okay. Anyone, business from the floor? Seeing none? One more motion. Mr.
Motion
Depp.
to adjourn?
Oh,
Sorry.
That's my job.
no. Motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
That's your job.
I didn't mean to jump on.